Michelle in here yet? Okay, we'll go ahead and get the committee meeting started. First bill, we're going to skip down and allow Senator Michelle to present Senate Bill 2470. Senator Michelle, you're recognized.
Is this the direct ship bill? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't
somebody
have
held
the
a
bill numbers
motion.
memorized. I believe this is the sales tax holiday legislation. We passed sales tax holiday bills many years ago for articles of clothing and footwear under 100 on the designated sales tax holiday weekend that they're exempt from taxation. And we came back and amended it several years later and included school supplies. And the legislation called for it to be the last weekend in July. And times have changed. We have some school systems going year round now. We have many school systems that are starting in early August. So this legislation simply moves the sales tax holiday weekend back to the second weekend in July. We think that'll help our merchants on border cities because of the adjacent states that have sales tax holidays. We'll have our sales tax holiday before them. And so your merchants in your border cities possibly will get out of state shoppers to come spend their money in Mississippi. That's all it does is change the weekend. It's still the same amount of time, still the same article of clothing and footwear, and still the school supplies.
All right, you've heard an explanation of the bill. Are there any questions? No questions? All right, for a motion? All right, motion is title sufficient to pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Senator Michelle. Next bill is Senate Bill 2405. What you have before you is a committee sub. And what this bill does, if you'll look on line 600, (661), it basically removes the language community or junior college or university from line 661. And that basically allows for liquor by the glass. So if a university or community college wanted to put a restaurant on campus, they could. It would have resort status similar to any of our other areas that serve liquor by the glass. It just removes where they are not allowed to, for the sale or consumption of alcohol beverages, enter on campus of any public school. It'll leave it at public school. It just removes community junior colleges and universities from that language. And then it also says that ABC divisions shall not issue a package retailer permit for the sale of alcoholic beverages in or on the campuses of any community or junior college or university. So that is the explanation of the bill. Are there any questions? No, it won't allow you to do it. We can always revisit that later on. Are there any questions? Seeing none, for a motion. Motion is title sufficient to pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next bill, Senate Bill 2457. Recognize Senator Williams to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill just does a couple of clarification things. Line 326, 327, what we're adding is or an affiliated entity or a state institution of higher learning. As many people are aware, a lot of times our universities have set up foundations that are purchasing property, and this just gives us uniform standards so campus will have the same same rules across the entire campus. The other part we're adding is either located inside or adjacent to but outside the city limits, and local leadership in Starkville, where this specific case is friendly towards this.
Okay. Are there any questions on the bill? Senator Jordan, you had a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're recognized for a question.
I have a question about price revise the definition of the term resort area under the local option alcoholic control law.
Could you speak into the microphone where we can hear you, Senator? I'm sorry.
What just kind of, the title is kind of difficult for me. Just explain what we're doing. That's all.
That's just the standard title for the bill. He's speaking to something that's a little more localized, I believe, in his area.
So it's really not anything major.
Correct.
Okay. Just understanding.
Yes,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none for a motion? Motion is title sufficient to pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next is Senate Bill 2493. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 2493 is a bond cleanup bill. It takes some of the bonds that are authorized and deauthorizes them or repeals them and moves several of the projects, including for universities and the Triple Crown Fund, the Project Poppy Fund, and the other CEF transfers, and that is going to be paid out of appropriations or capital expense.
You've heard an explanation of the bill. Similar language to the one we passed last year that we had as a vehicle. If we chose to do so, I guess we're just having a vehicle in the event we want to eliminate some of the debt and use cash, but not always a foregone conclusion. Senator Bryan for a question.
Well, Mr. Chairman, there's a real world problem out there. And I don't know that it, as you say, this is just a vehicle. But the State Bond Commission in its wisdom has decided just to stop issuing bonds. As I understand, period. They're just not issuing bonds. So there are projects that have been authorized and the beneficiaries, the people can't get the money because they won't issue the bonds. So everything's frozen. And as you may have noticed, the cost of construction keeps going up. And so once again, with all this policy of not issuing any bonds when interest rates were effectively negative interest rates and delaying things forever, and now just not issuing bonds at all with the thought that someday, somehow, we're going to do this through appropriations. It's the most counterproductive thing that I know of. And I would hope that since we're down here in session, that we could figure out what we're going to do. And if the State Bond Commission is not going to meet, maybe we need a different State Bond Commission.
Well, I'm not aware of them not issuing bonds. I think I'd heard anecdotal stories. They'd actually issued some bonds not too long ago, but these are some of the projects I think that have bonds remaining on them that are already in progress that we're talking about transferring cash to instead of taking on additional debt. But I understand your frustration, and we'll look into whether or not the bond commission plans on meeting and issuing bonds.
Well, maybe they've met recently and I didn't get the message. I don't always, know what's going on.
We'll check into that for you, Senator.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the bill? Seeing none for a motion.
Title sufficient to pass.
Motion is title sufficient to pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next bill is Senate Bill 2901. Senator Johnson, you're recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 2901 deals with property taxes. What it does is it sets for taxing subdivisions of the state a revenue neutral rate based on their tax revenue in the base year, which would be the year following this being becoming law. And anytime the county or city would like to raise the amount of revenue, they would have to post notice 14 days in advance and show why they need to raise their budget and then pass it at their board meeting. So it doesn't limit the ability to raise taxes. It's just a more transparent way of paying property taxes where you can have more predictability on what your property taxes are. And that's an explanation of the bill.
Okay. For the explanation of the bill, are there any questions? Senator Bryan for a question.
I'm trying to determine if this takes into account growth
It does. So the formula is based on total assessed value in that taxing subdivision. So if there is construction, it would increase the assessed value, which would lower that revenue neutral millage rate to keep revenue on par.
So this kicks in if the dollar amount in year two is greater than the dollar amount in year one.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
If the dollar amount raised by taxes in year two is greater than the dollar amount raised in year one, this would kick in.
So this would, to raise the dollar amount for revenue, you would just have to pass that you want to increase that revenue neutral rate.
But we'll say I'm levying 38 mills, and next year I propose to levy 38 mills, but some folks have built new houses and they got on the tax rolls. So I'd get more at 38 mills. And under this, that would trigger the need to run an ad saying you're raising taxes.
No, it would actually be a lower tax across the board for the same revenue. And if you want to increase the total revenue, you would have a meeting and post that you're doing.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is I have 38 mills year one. I'm going to have 38 mills in year two. I'm not changing the millage rate. But what has happened is 3 people have built houses. And so that's 38 millage, 38 mills would bring in more money because
This
there are 3 new
effectively
houses.
changes the millage rate based on the assessed value. So the millage rate is fluctuating with the assessed value to be on par with revenue year after year.
Well, I think that's what I was trying to ask in the first place is if I've got a 38 mill millage rate and next year I'm going to have a 38 mill millage rate, but there are 3 new houses, so I'm going to collect 38 mills on the 3 new houses, that's considered a tax increase and I have to run this notice.
Yes, okay, I apologize. I understand what you're saying. Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions? All right, Senator Sparks for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does this take into account any tax credits that people are taking against their ad valorem taxes?
Yes, I apologize. 2 things that I failed to mention. It exempts school districts and it is only for, it does exclude tax credits. They're taken into consideration.
Okay. Any further questions on the bill? Seeing none, for a motion?
Title sufficient do pass.
Motion is title sufficient do pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? We're adjourned.